Do you remember the promotional videos from Carlton United Breweries promoting Victoria's most iconic beer, Victoria Bitter?
How does it happen? You're coaching the crew, or printing the news, or straining till you thought you would burst. You sure got a thirst.
I have fond memories of watching these videos as a kid. I'm sure a lot of Aussies do out there. They reminded me or showed me as I was growing up what it was to be a working class Aussie. This beer is not my favourite, and in fact doesn't have a place in my home. The only time I have ever enjoyed this beer is after a Tough Mudder event that I did way back in 2016. After finishing it, I was looking forward to any beer, and when I drank it, it tasted so good. In July 2017, Carlton United Brewery, or CUB, announced it would cut the alcohol content from 4.9% to 4.8% because of taxes. They then cut it to 4.6% in an effort to get further savings, sacrificing the recipe. In 2012, Carlton United woke up, realised they weren't getting great sales, and ended up bringing it back to the original 4.9%, pretty much due to complaints from drinkers out there who loved the iconic drink. I've been asked recently if I have a recipe for a Victoria Bitter clone, let's say. Well, I don't. I didn't, and I looked everywhere and I couldn't find even all grain or any kind of recipe. So I went to my local brew shop. I went to my regular one, Ferment Cellars, but they were closed at the time, so I needed to get this recipe sorted. As I do support Ferment Cellars, I wasn't able to get the product from them, so I needed to get it elsewhere. And during the week, I just went straight to the nearest shop and bought myself Morgan's Australian Bitter. Now, the Morgan's Australian Bitter is a great beer on its own. Just mix it with a bit of dextrose and off you go. But today, with advice from the brew shop, is pop in 8 grams of Pride of Ringwood Hops. Now, we're going to steep them for 20 minutes in a cup and then pour that in when we add the yeast. So the yeast we're using today is Saf Lager yeast. It's S23, and I think it's going to be a really good yeast. I'm going to ferment it at 18 degrees. Now, I don't know if you guys realise this, but Victoria Bitter is a lager. Now, that surprised me. I had no idea it was a lager until I read about it just recently. So that's a real eye-opener. So we'll see how we go with that. I'm also adding a Brew Enhancer blend. It's a heavy Brew Enhancer blend. It'll thicken it up a little bit, not thicken it up, but it'll give me a good mouthfeel, help me with retention of head. It's going to be hopefully a good mix. We're going to mix this into a Firmzilla and ferment it at 18 degrees in my fridge with a little heater because it's now getting cooler here in Gippsland, and go from there. So let's get into it, shall we? What we're going to do now is put the extract in hot water in our little bucket here. This will basically heat the extract up because it's getting cool now, and thin it out so I can pour it easier when I put it into my fermenter. So all I do is remove the yeast packet, which I'm not using, which is good yeast, so I might keep that for future purposes. So that's gone, the lid off, yeast out. You've got this little mucously sticky thing on here. This is a nuisance when you open a can. So when I open a can, I actually open it from the bottom. It makes it heaps easier. We're popping our Australian Bitter in the unit, and I'm going to boil up 2 litres of hot water in my kettle and pour it over it. So while I'm doing that, I'll let that boil. I'm going to go inside. I'm going to grab a couple of spoons. I'm going to show you something. In the last year or so, all the brews I do, I add a Camden tablet to it, to the water, to eliminate the chlorine and chloramine that's in the water, because it fixes a lot of bad flavours. So all I do is grab a Camden tablet, which is a, I'll show you what that is. It's a little packet. It's a bit dirty. The packet's a bit dirty, but the whole thing's pretty good. You're going to hear some sounds of the kettle in a minute, so don't stress. I was thinking, how do I crush this? Do I get it on a bench, squish it, crush it, make it whatever? Or do I get a garlic press and squash it in the garlic press? And I thought, well, that's going to jam up all the little grills in it. I figured out that you get 2 spoons of the same type, place the Camden tablet, I'll show you under here, on top of 1 spoon, get the back of the other spoon, and squeeze top really hard. Just like that. Nothing's going anywhere, nothing's going out, and we now have a crushed Camden tablet in there. Now it's recommended to put a half a Camden tablet for about 20 litres of water. And that's a whole Camden tablet. So what I do is I don't measure it. I just cut it in half and scoop half in there and keep the rest for another time, or just throw it away, discard it. It won't matter too much that you put a whole Camden tablet in it, which I have done, but it's better to do just a half. It's a chemical, and you do, the least amount of chemicals you put in, the better. Alright, so the kettle's boiled. I'm just going to pour this over the thing. And now, I'd like to show you something before I do that. For you guys who haven't done extract brewing before, on here is a list on what you can do as you prepare your brew. Just have a read of it. Make sure you get it right. It's much, much more important to do that than it is to do it your own way. Just check what they recommend you do. I've done it for a while now, so I'm getting used to it. So I'll pour my hot water in. Remember, this is 100 degrees Celsius water. Your glasses fog up, so you can't see anything. And it can burn you permanently. So be extra careful. So if you don't have a shed and you're doing this in the kitchen, it is so much safer to do it in the sink with just hot water, even hot tap water if you want to. I'll put that aside now and just have it ready for opening in about 15 minutes time. So I'll reboil the kettle again. I'll put 2 litres in. As it's boiling, I'll add my brew enhancer and then pour the hot water in there after it has finished boiling. That'll give me 100 degrees Celsius water, and then I'm going to add another 21 litres of just water to it. So what I'm going to do though is the plastic fermenters that I use, like Fermzilla, can't handle high heat. I think the Fermzilla can handle 50 degrees Celsius now, which is absolutely awesome. So I'll dilute the brew down to a temperature that it can handle, then I'll top it up with water directly. So guys, I'm sure you can see what's going on here. All this foam is actually just sanitizer. I just made sure it was clean before I started working on it. I'm going to open up my blend now. This is a blend of light malt, maltodextrin and dextrose. This will just add for sugars and give me a bit more of a mouthfeel. And then of course, make it nicer to drink. So I'm going to pour that in on top of the whatever's left over this sanitizer that's in there. Now that'll be fine, it's okay. So this is 1 kilo. We always put about 1 kilo in. I'll wash that bag out and actually reuse it for other things. I might even put, store things in it. It's a good bag and it's not going to go to waste. So I'll wait for the kettle to boil. Once the kettle boils, I'll do a mix and mix it all in, and we'll go to the next step. Happy to say the kettle's boiled, ready to go. This spoon, my friends, is the recommendation to use with a plastic bucket. If you use a steel spoon, like something like that, it tends to scratch the bucket, so you don't want that to happen. Basically, if you scratch a bucket that's plastic, the bacteria can get caught in the little micro scratches that you'll make. And sometimes it's very hard to get that out. So if you use a plastic spoon, it's less dense, so it won't scratch the surface of that bucket. So my advice to you, make sure that you use a plastic spoon with a plastic bucket. You can use a metal spoon with a metal bucket, or a plastic spoon with a metal bucket. Just don't use a metal spoon with a plastic bucket. Cheers! So what I'm going to put now, you still recording? Yes? I'm going to put the hot water in. Now, again, this is 100 degrees Celsius. This bucket can handle 100 degrees Celsius. I'm yelling, sorry. Hope you can hear that. This bucket can handle 100 degrees Celsius. I'll just make it off. Now, the reason why I put the dextrose in there, people are saying, oh, throw the dextrose in after you put the hot water in. I learnt from a YouTuber. Yeah. That's where I learn all my stuff. I've never learnt anything from an actual brewer, except just recently from Bit of Reality Brewing. That's the first time I've actually talked to somebody who brews. And he's been teaching me a hell of a lot. I'll leave a link down below. Check him out, he's really good. So what I'm doing is dissolving the malt, the maltodextrin and the dextrose. Now maltodextrin is non-fermentable sugars, I believe, and the dextrose is fermentable sugars, and the malt has fermentable sugars. This is what I gather, or what I know from this. So all I'm doing is just dissolving it in hot boiling water. So now that's dissolved, pretty much done. I'll now put That's still very hot. So I'll just pop that aside. We now need to take our dextrose. No, we now need to take our... Now that's a smell. Now let me tell you, I have some old extracts that I'm doing. They smell the same. The labels still stink. I'd say it must be something to do with the paper itself. I used to use an electric can opener. If some of you watch my videos, I was using that for a while, but it was just becoming a bit of a nuisance, so I don't use it anymore. So this is pretty warm. It's been there for 15 minutes now. So I'll discard that. The water's not so hot anymore. So the heat transfer has happened. I'll put a lid on it so we don't lose or get anything in there that might damage something, so I'll leave that on there. Now, like I said, on the bottom of this, that's a base, that's a top. See the sticky pad? Now that could be a nuisance. If you had a electric can open, it will stick on it. But this one, this one is a manual one, and I'm actually going to open it from the right side for a change. So I'll open that up, and we'll pour it in. And on the end, there's a little hook. You actually open it, grab your lip, and close it onto the lip. And that allows you to lift the lid off, just like that. I'll drag my hot water over. This is my extract. It smells really nice, like always. It smells bloody beautiful. And I'll proceed to pour it in. Look how watery that is, just from heating up. That is great. That will make my job so much easier. So I'll just scoop out the excess. What I'll do, and you guys, some of you guys have commented sometimes on the colour of my water in my fermenter, is I know there's 2 litres plus 1.7 litres of extract, and I really don't know how much the malt to dextrin, or the brew enhancer, takes. I can't see it taking a lot, so I'm using the hot water to dissolve the extract properly and dissolve the brew enhancer. And I'll stir that for about 5 minutes. Once it's stirred, I'll then start working on the hops and the fermenter. Alright, that's mixed. I'm going to just put that aside. I probably showed you before in other videos. You can see that it's mostly dissolved. You can see it sitting there. Oh, you probably can't see. Oh, you might be able to see on that. We'll try, eh? See if that Sony works. So I'm just going to sit that aside. It's pretty concentrated still. It's a high concentration of extract. And we'll just leave that set aside so the flies can't get to it. I'll start working on the fermenter now. So what I have here is my Fermentosaurus. It's not an all-rounder. The all-rounder is being used for another brew at the moment. Now I've run out of beer, so I have to start making this stuff. So you're going to probably see some videos coming up. What I've done is I've added sanitizer in it. I've already done a mix around, made sure it was coated on every surface. I will tip that sanitizer out. Okay, that's empty. I know that I've got a maximum of 4 litres in my mix here already. So I need 23 litres, so I'll need to do 19 litres into the fermenter before I add the extract. So what I'll do now is grab my hose and fill it up to 19 litres of water, just water. And I'll add my Camden tablet at the same time. So you guys can't see it from here. These beeping here that I'm doing, beep beep, is my philometer. I actually set this up so I get the exact amount of fluids that I want. That way, accuracy is a lot more prominent. So now it starts. I'll fill this up. Once it's full, I'll add my extract. And once I check the temperature, I'll then show you how I do the hops. So that's 19 litres of water, tap water. So because it's tap water, it's going to be chloramine. It's going to be contaminated with chloramine and chlorine. And I don't know if you can see what I'm doing here. I'll bring it over to you a bit closer. I've got a full tablet in here and I only need 1 tablet. So what I'm going to do is just divide that in about half. Just going to throw half a tablet in there. That'll do. So the rest of it, I'll just discard. What that will do is it will actually dilute, or sorry, the chemical would, oh, you know what I forgot to do? I forgot to rinse out my extract. Bugger! Oh well, just going to have to keep going. I don't know if you guys can see the little white bits in the water here. That's just the Camden tablet still not fully dissolved. So once they fully dissolve, they will actually eat away and chew up all the chlorine and chloramine. So it's really good. It doesn't matter, we mix it up with the brew anyway and it will come up spot on. So while this kettle's boiling for the hops, I'm going to actually add now my extract. I've got a funnel. Now this is going to be interesting because I'm going to try and do it so you guys can see it better. I will move this up a little. Maybe. Like that. Can you see? I hope you can see that. Now my funnel has already been sanitized. I'll pop a little bit more on there just in case because I'm very cautious of that sort of thing. Now I'm pretty sure that there will be less than 23 litres once I'm finished, so I'll be able to rinse my bucket out a little bit when I'm finished pouring. I need to do that because I need to get the extract out. So we're going to pour this in. This looks really ominous, but it's probably the best thing I've ever done, best way I've ever done it. Look at that. That works really well. And you guys, I'm sure, can see that really clearly. So that's the extract going in with the enhancer. Sorry, bucket's sitting and hitting the camera. Sorry about that. I'm getting in front of the camera. Hopefully you can see it with the GoPro. Right. So that's my extract poured in. I will need to now rinse this with water. First, I'll check the levels. It is 20, as I thought, it is 20, what's that, 5, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21 and a half. So I've still got 1.5 litres to put in, which is great, because then, now I can rinse out everything, so it's good. Now the kettle's boiled, but I won't do the steeping for a sec. I need to leave it 20 minutes before I add everything else. So first, I'll rinse this out, which I need 1.5 litres. I'll pour that in, and we're getting pretty full now. Make sure it all levels up straight and easy. We've got 21, 22, 23 is that line there, so hopefully you can see it with the other camera if I filmed it properly. We're at 23 litres. Now that's 23 litres. I'm going to sit it there for a minute, just let it settle. I will be shaking this up to let the oxygen get through it. If I sit it there now, the temperature is at 24 degrees Celsius. 24, it's a bit higher than I thought it would be. So my groundwater must be still quite high. But on that, I'll be mixing it with this. Actually, I have to mix it. They'll probably change the temperature anyway. Just leave it sitting there for now, and I'll just leave it waiting. Let it settle. And what I have here, the guys have wrote it on there, Super Pride. I'm pretty sure it's a concentrated type Pride of Ringwood hop. It's very strong, apparently. Now we want to make that, we want to pour that into a cup of 100 degrees hot water. What I think I'll do is I'll just move my fermenter across, just so you guys can, see what I'm doing. Now when they say steep for 20 minutes, they mean, what I've gathered and what I've worked out, is put hot water in your cup. Now I'll put this about 3/4 of a cup of hot water. Actually, I'll put a little bit like this. Then I'll pop my 8 grams of Pride of Ringwood, which is Super Pride. Jeez, that's strong. So it dissolves them. I'm sure you see it up here. Then I'll pour more hot water in so it helps circulate it a bit. Look at that, it's like tea. And bring it up to my cup full. Alright, so we're ready to put the yeast in and the hops. So the hops have been steeping for 20 minutes. Now this is a concentrated hops. This is Pride of Ringwood. So I'm going to pour them in first to cool them down before I put the yeast in, so I don't in turn affect the yeast in any way. So the Pride of Ringwood is about just under a cup of yeast there, hops. So throw them in. That's done. Now the temperature of my brew is hovering around about 22 degrees. And now I was pretty close. I said I'm 1 degree out. I need to now add the yeast. The yeast is Saf Lager S23. So it's one I haven't used before. I'm about to cut it, but I want to make sure I throw a bit of sanitizer. Now, as you've watched my videos in the past, you've seen me use sanitizer before. Now, the reason why I use sanitizer on the scissors and the yeast gets touched by people in factories and everywhere else where they stick it to the can. It travels, it gets dust in it, gets bacteria growing on it, and I just want to make sure that it's not going to get into my brew. As well as my scissors. My scissors have been used many times and cleaned all the time, but it has been sitting in the shed for a week, so I need to rinse it with sanitizer. So anyway, I'll show you my yeast. Interesting. Oh, it's not a bad smell. Hopefully you can see that on that camera. Maybe on this camera. All recording, which is great. Are you recording? I can't tell if you're recording. You're recording. The red light's on. I'm now going to pitch it. I'm pitching my yeast at 22 degrees Celsius. Just throwing it in. Now people come up with scientific names for how much yeast you put in, how much you got to put in. Now, really, to tell you the truth, if you're home brewing, and it just went everywhere else other than in the thing, but it doesn't matter. It's going to work. If you're home brewing, pitching your yeast like this is not a problem. You're going to probably drink it within 8 weeks. So the effect that it'll have will be minimal, if any. It's only those die-hard people who want to be scientifically correct with everything they do. So now, the yeast is pitched. We are now ready to let it ferment. I have 'I've now got 23 litres of water in here. It's at 22 degrees Celsius. I'll pop that into my fermentation fridge because our temperature here in Gippsland now has dropped. We are averaging about 18 degrees Celsius through the day and about 12 to 10 degrees Celsius during the night. And it won't get much different than that. It'll probably get a little bit colder, a little bit warmer through the winter time. It's autumn. We will get some warmer temperatures, like up to 25 degrees Celsius through the autumn, which is fall for you Americans if you're watching. And it should work really well, so I shouldn't get any fluctuations in temperatures anyway. So what I'll do now is I'll take this 23 kilogram plus out, and I'll actually shake it, because I'm nuts. And I found that works to enter all the oxygen through the system, as well as mix all that product. That's a killer. Okay, as you can see, it's I'm not very fit. Now, as you can see, it's all put through. It's all shook through. It's all shook through. Ready to go. So I'll now wrap a heat belt on it, which will be the next step. So this here is my heat belt. Now I'm going to use this heat belt because the temperatures in my area is going to drop. It's going to get down to a low temperature, lower than what my brew wants to be at. So the heat belt will keep that temperature at the temperature I want it to be at. So I'll throw this on. It should go really on the lower part of the fermenter, but these fermenters are very hard to do that with. So I'll put that on there, just like that. I'll clamp this so it doesn't come loose. And I'll do that with just cable tie, basically. If I cable tie that where it is now, it'll stay there and it won't move. Plug it in. So what I've done with the heat belt, hopefully you can see that, I've put a cable tie just here and wrapped it around my fermenter. As you can see, it's 22 degrees. So that shouldn't come off during fermentation. So that way it'll keep its temperature to what I want it to be at. that'll be now put in my fridge and regulated by my temperature controller. So the fridge will have the fridge out of the temperature controller, and heat out will go to this cable, which will allow it to stay at the temperature I want it to be at. The probe will just be stuck to the side of it. I do have a fermentosaurus that has a probe, like a thermo well inserted into it, but I'm not keen on using it. It's not the best idea, I guess, but I haven't really assessed it well. I will be looking more into it in the future. I have a brew coming up, so I'll use that for that brew, and we'll test it again, and I'll do some fine tuning and see how it comes out and see if it's actually worth having. I'm pressure fermenting this one at 15 psi. So thanks guys, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and just to let you know, this is part 1 of a 2-part video series. It will be a couple of weeks, maybe 3, maybe 4 weeks before you'll see the next video, and that will cover transfer and tasting of this brew. I'm going to do comparisons. I'm going to buy a 6-pack of VB and compare it with what I've made and see if it is actually very similar or of any way similar to this.